Guru Nation, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share. Really means a lot to me. I got asked, it was actually a comment that I got, and the comment was from YouTube, and it said, hey, can you make a video on CRC, just outlining CRA and CRC responsibilities, typical job duties. So today I'm going to do CRC, and then probably next week I'm going to do CRA, and maybe I'll revisit these after a while. Now, I got to preface this one. So this is the CRC one, Clinical Research Coordinator. I'm going to assume that the site is having the Clinical Research Coordinator do most tasks, like my sites. I know at a lot of academic medical centers, they have phlebotomists that draw blood, they have assistants that do data entry, they have pharmacists that dispense the IP. I'm going with like community-based sites because that's where the CRCs do the most. They have the most responsibilities. So let's just begin, right? GCP, good clinical practice. You've got to follow good clinical practice in all things that you do. What does GCP mean? You can take the free training if you want. Message me if you want the link. You've got to keep patients safe. Rule number 1 is keep patients safe. Rule number 2 is don't forget rule number 1. That's GCP in a nutshell. Even if it means going against the protocol. Okay, usually protocols are written in a way where they're not conflicting with GCP, but there are cases, and you need to know that. So, coordinator, the name actually makes a lot of sense. They coordinate all the activities of a study, and especially when it comes to conducting study visits for patients. So, this actually occurs even before the patient's ever in a trial. It's a portion of clinical research called recruitment, and then pre-screening. So recruitment is identifying potential patients. Those are called leads. When these leads become interested in a trial, they become pre-screening candidates. Usually over the phone or text, or some, in rare cases in person, the coordinator will pre-qualify, meaning pre-screen the patient to see if they qualify for a study. Generally, I know some IRBs will give you a pre-screening consent form. I don't think you need that. You don't need IRB approval to pre-screen a patient, in my opinion. You can quote me on that. I know there's going to be people out there saying, well, you should actually have. I don't think so. You're scaring the patient at this point with more paperwork. There's going to be plenty of paperwork for the patient to sign once they screen. Now, at the pre-screening visit, you can give the patient a copy of the consent form and say, here is the consent form for you to look over. So what you're doing is you're pre-qualifying the patient, meaning you've got to know the inclusion-exclusion criteria very well. You've got to know the medications for that therapeutic area very well. You've got to know what medications are allowed, which ones are prohibited, which ones need to be washed off, which ones are exclusionary, in order to bring in a viable candidate that has a successful chance of being screened and being eventually randomized. So that's recruitment. Coordinators do recruitment and pre-screening. Coordinators also do every other study visit, such as screening visit. Coordinators do consent. Coordinators are usually the ones with the patient consenting them. Yes, the PI can come in and out and be available for questions, but the coordinator actually needs to coordinate that with the PI's schedule to make sure and send reminders to the PI when needed. Hey, we're consenting. Don't forget to stop by for 10 minutes in case the patient has questions. You're coordinating everything. You're coordinating the patient's time. Hey, I can't come in tomorrow at 8:30. Can I come in at 10 instead? Yeah, no problem, patient. And then you tell your PI, hey, I know I told you 8:30, but I'm going to need you to come in around 10:15. This is just constantly going on in a coordinator's day-to-day, and we're not even getting into like doing the actual study. This is constantly occurring, whether it's the PI, the sub-I, or whomever else you need for that particular patient visit. A vendor, if you need an x-ray for a patient, hey, we need to schedule an x-ray, we need to schedule an eye exam. You're coordinating, you're scheduling. Yes, a lot of sites have assistants to help with these things, but generally it's the coordinator making sure all this is taken care of. The coordinator is the backbone of the clinical trial. So consenting, documenting the process of consent. If you don't know what that means, watch the 5-hour video. But basically, how does an auditor know that the process of consent was followed? It needs to be documented in a progress note. So that leads us into the documentation practices of a coordinator. ALCOAC. Attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, accurate, and complete. These are the rules for good documentation practices that a CRC must follow. Not would be nice to, must. And that occurs throughout the course of the study. At screening, at randomization, by the way, adhering to visit windows, scheduling patients' next visits, scheduling patients' labs if you're using a local lab, or, here's one, doing the labs. This is why I think phlebotomists make great coordinators. Like actually drawing the patient's blood. Not every coordinator does this, but if that coordinator doesn't do blood draw, they have to, what does the name say? Coordinate with an appropriate person to draw the patient's blood. Same thing with ECGs. Most coordinators do the ECGs, but if not, they have to, you got it, coordinate with someone to do the ECG. Then, interpreting the lab results. Coordinators are not qualified to assess clinical significance. So, they have to coordinate with a delegated team member, usually it's the PI or a sub-I, to review the labs and review the ECGs throughout the course of the study and all other medical assessments that require qualified professionals. A lot of coordinating. The name is actually very fitting. And communicating all this to the patient, because you don't want to keep the patient in the dark about their results. So you've got to, what did the PI say? Okay, NCS, non-clinically significant. Let me tell the patient, hey, don't worry about this one. Our PI says it's non-clinically significant. Next is a whole new world. Regulatory. And there's way more in the source than actually conducting the visits. Before I get into regulatory, there's two more important ones. Investigational product. Dispensing. Most coordinators dispense the investigational product, unless that requires a clinician to do it, like an infusion. You usually need someone else to do it, or an injection. But if it's a pill, or sometimes even a self-administered injection, the coordinators go in the IRT. You gotta be very tech savvy if you're a coordinator. There's like 12 vendors on average per study. All of them have their own portals. You gotta jump through hoops to do different things, troubleshoot, set up diaries for patients, patient-reported outcomes, walk them through how to do it, be a help desk for the patient. It's crazy when I'm actually breaking it down right now what a coordinator does. Alright, so there's investigational product dispensing, and then there's investigational product accountability, meaning, is the patient being compliant? How do you know? Did you ask them? Did you document it? Are they or are they not? Both of those require some documentation. Retraining the patient. A next important thing is interacting with the CRO or the sponsor, usually vis-a-vis the CRA. And the coordinator is going to answer queries, It's going to respond to protocol deviations. It's going to respond to CRA action items. It's a lot of fun stuff. There's like a 2-hour-long podcast just that. Now we get to regulatory. IRB approval. Initial IRB submission. Continuing IRB review. Coordinator's doing that stuff. Filling out those applications. 1572. Coordinator's doing that. Financial disclosure form. Coordinator's doing that. Protocol signature page. Coordinator's making sure the investigator is signing that. Any SUSARs, suspected unexpected serious adverse reactions. Coordinator's making sure the PI is signing those. Delegation of authorities log. Coordinator usually fills that out and has the PI initial and date where they need to, and everyone else. Start date, stop date for new staff. Coordinator is usually doing that, and the PI initial and date again. Study startup, when you're getting a new study. Feasibility surveys. Tell the sponsor about your site. Maybe we can get you a study. Coordinator's doing that. Study startup, meaning you've been selected for the study. Here's the initial regulatory packet. Please complete. Coordinator's doing that. And coordinator's making sure all the other people from the site are going to be signing off on the appropriate forms. It's a lot. Alright, so source, IP accountability, regulatory, and patient interaction and sponsor interaction. That's basically the duties of a CRC. I'm trying to keep this relatively short. I could spend 3 hours on this if we really want to go in depth. And don't tempt me, because I might. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a crazy long video, extremely in depth on this topic. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Bye-bye.